Several scientists, including yourself and Dr. Martin Kulldorff, he's involved, have sued. You joined a lawsuit filed by the states of Louisiana and Missouri alleging that the Biden administration worked with the tech companies to censor American citizens, specifically on the issue of COVID. And depositions are going on in here. As according to what I read, Jay, you tell me, but it appears that in the course of discovery, you've received at least the following. Evidence that the CDC sent a chart of posts to Twitter that it deemed misinformation. That's concrete evidence of collusion between them. And then you got to take the deposition of Anthony Fauci, who suddenly, Jay, even though we have it on paper between Fauci and Collins, the head of the NIH at the time, talking about how they were going to smear you, the three of you, at the Great Barrington Declaration, fringe epidemiologists, they call it fringe. Because, those universities I just mentioned, they're big on hiring fringy people. Fringe. And Collins on the record saying, we need to tamp this down, right now. And why hasn't it been tamped down already? Despite all that, Fauci basically went in there and was like, who? Jay, who? Great what? I don't know. No, I don't remember. I have no idea. I haven't really had the time to look at that. That's a blatant lie. We know that's not true.
I mean, he said in a 7-hour deposition, he said 180 times or something. I don't recall. I don't remember. To basic things he does. It's funny, there's on substantive issues, he did this crazy change of mind about masks. If you remember early in the pandemic, he was saying masks don't work, you don't need them. Then later he said, "Oh, I was just lying about that. I didn't mean it. Masks did work, but I wanted to save it for hospital workers." And the question, and this was we asked him why. The lawyers asked him why did he change his mind? On what evidence he changed his mind? There's a long record of him saying before the pandemic that masks don't work for respiratory virus pandemics. And asked him why, and he said, "Well, there's studies." Well, what studies? I don't recall. He's basically the face of science itself in the United States, and he can't cite a study that says why he changed his mind in April 2020 about masks or March 2020 about masks. That's the reason. Is not because he doesn't recall. It's because there was no reasonable study, no high quality study that would have justified him changing his mind.
Yes.
It's amazing. The American people deserve better. He put himself up as essentially the high pope of science. If you criticize me, Tony Fauci says, you're not criticizing a man, you're criticizing science itself. At the very least, he should be able to cite the science. And going after me, this fringe. By the way, Megyn, I got a friend of mine sent me a business card that says fringe epidemiologist on it, which I'm going to hand out to people now.
Great.
Now I think it's better to be on the fringe than anywhere else. I think these people like Tony Fauci, Francis Collins, the head of the National Institute of Health, they abuse their power. They sit atop this vast pile of money that supports the scientific research of a very large number of prominent biomedical scientists in the United States, including almost everyone who does infectious disease epidemiology. It's not just that they have money, the research, their support, the NIH support, creates this sort of social structure. You can't advance in biomedicine unless you have NIH funding. I don't get tenure at Stanford University unless I got an NIH grant, which I did. So the problem is that they do this and they essentially send a message to other scientists. You should stay silent. If you talk, your career could be ruined. Your career could be threatened. You may never get another NIH grant. That's implicitly what they're saying when they say fringe and devastating takedown. That message was heard loud and clear. A lot of scientists who disagreed with the policy that Tony Fauci was pushing stayed silent. They censored themselves as a consequence. The whole purpose of this regime, the censorship by Twitter, the devastating takedown by Tony Fauci and Francis Collins, all of that was designed to create an illusion of consensus that never existed about COVID censorship, COVID policies, about lockdowns and all the rest.
An illusion of consensus here, just for the audience, is what they said. This is from Francis Collins to Fauci, then the director of same group. He's always been the director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and several others. He writes, "Hi, Tony and Cliff. See thegreatbarringtondeclaration.org. This proposal from 3 fringe epidemiologists who met with the secretary seems to be getting a lot of attention, and even a co-signature from Nobel Prize winner Mike Levitt at Stanford. There needs to be a quick and devastating published takedown of its premises. I don't see anything like that online yet. Is it underway? And it goes on from there with them reassuring that it'll happen, that it did happen. Then he wants it to go away more. He gets angry that it hasn't happened. The thing on Fauci is very interesting to me on the mask flipping, because we knew what you said. We know he originally said you don't need masks, and then he said, "Oh, everybody's got a mask up," and I only lied before to make sure emergency workers would have enough masks. Well, about 2 weeks ago, he was asked by some reporter, "Do you have any regrets in how you handled the pandemic?" And he said, "No, I don't. I have no regrets." Well, then we, among others, criticized him, given some of the figures you and I just discussed about school closures and so on, and he got a do-over on it. Another reporter asked him the question, and he did think of a regret, and it had to do with masks. And here's his new explanation in line with the one you just said he gave in the deposition. It's SOT 5.
Is there anything you would have done differently looking back?
Well, of course. I mean, to say there's something that nothing you would have done differently means you were perfect. And nobody's perfect by any means, certainly not I. The science gives you information that's present and current at the time. And when that changes, you need to change. Some people call that flip-flopping. It's not flip-flopping. It's keeping up with the evidence.
Looking back, would you have recommended masking up sooner?
Oh, absolutely. Had we known that it was aerosol spread and that a lot of the transmission was from asymptomatic people and there was asymptomatic spread going on under the radar screen, of course.
There it is. So now it didn't have to do with maintaining masks for emergency workers. It's that we didn't know it was aerosol spread, and we didn't know it could be spread by asymptomatic people.
I mean, there's a few things that are really, really wrong with that. So first of all, if you have aerosol spread, masks, as most people wear them, are not tight sealed. People aren't trained to wear masks tight sealed, especially early in the pandemic. They pushed cloth masks, for God's sakes. Even surgical masks leave gaps. If you ever wear a mask and you get your glasses fogged up, that's aerosols escaping. The aerosols stay in the air. The masks don't stop aerosol spread. So that itself was a mistake of the science. The second thing is, early in the pandemic, I ran a study. It was a study of antibodies in the population in Santa Clara County, and then another study in LA County. A whole bunch of these studies were run early in the pandemic. What we found was that the disease had already spread pretty, like 3-4% of the population, 50 times more infections than people than identified cases in April of 2020. Tony Fauci knew about this because we have FOIA emails where he is discussing this study. Most of it's redacted, by the way, so I don't know exactly what he was thinking, but he knew about the study. That in April of 2020 should have indicated to him that the disease was very, very widespread. So given that, why did they adopt this suppression strategy? The idea was that you could suppress it to zero, maybe? I'm not sure what they had in mind. Flatten the curve so that the hospital systems were ready. By April of 2020, we already built reserve capacity in the Mercy ship in New York and so on, which went unused. Really, what should have happened is as soon as those studies came out, the powers that be should have adopted a policy of focused protection. We knew very early on it was older people that were at risk. We never needed to do any of that. And it was clear from the scientific evidence at the time. Tony Fauci failed mainly because he did not read the science properly. And as a result of that, he used his power to get his way on the basis of false ideas about what the science actually was saying, even at the time.
If you're like me, you're growing more and more concerned about the future. The market's all over the place, and inflation is at its highest level in 40 years. Interest rates are skyrocketing. Market experts are predicting possibly recession, possibly bad one, using scary terms like economic hurricane. If you want to protect your future, call a precious metal dealer I trust, American Hartford Gold. They can show you how to protect your savings and retirement accounts by diversifying your portfolio with physical gold and silver. All it takes to get started is a short phone call, and they will have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside your IRA or 401k. And they keep it simple. This is the highest rated firm in the country with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied clients. And as an exclusive offer for my fans, if you call them right now, they will give you up to $1,500 of free silver and a free safe on qualifying orders. So don't wait. Call now. Call 866-518-2955. That's 866-518-2955 or text Megyn, that's MEGYN, to 65532. Again, that's 866-518-2955 or text MEGYN to 65532. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.